they never let the foot off the throat, do they? This team did in such a way that there's so much navel gazing going on in South Africa at the moment, they're bound to make some really stupid decisions.
Does this say that every single team now has a possibility on a one-off basis of actually winning games like this? That's what it says to me.
They were turned over by a better team on their sacred pitch, and that hurts. And of course they'll bounce back. But it means when they turn up for the buck, your guys will be feeling like,
we can take it.
So what?
Yeah, we can take it. Yeah.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
What a weekend of rugby that was. Southern Hemisphere rugby. Well, we've got to go to the Northern Hemisphere now, don't we, for a bit of a chat about this, because they threw the Lions down at us, or Australia, and thought that that's the best team in the world, one of the greatest Lions sides ever. And we're sitting here countering it the whole time saying, hey, we've got the All Blacks, and the All Blacks are on the improve, and we're rebuilding, and we got South Africa, and they're back-to-back world champions, and they've got this aura of invincibility. Well, not so, because they got bum-shellacked at their place, the Aussies in their face. And 38-22 is a scoreline that has just turned the world of international rugby upside down. Our man Chris Jones, Times Online, Sunday Times, RugbyPass.com, joins us. And Chris, your initial thoughts when you watched that game, saw that result, were what?
I just thought, in years to come, people will turn to each other and say, where were you when Australia absolutely hammered the Springboks at Ellis Park, where they never lose? It's an absolutely momentous victory. And, quite rightly, the Australians, they're having a huge party. The problem is now, of course, they've got to go to Cape Town. And three of their heroes are injured. And this is always the problem with Australia. Do they have strength and depth? Well, they may not have the strength and depth at the moment, but come the World Cup in 27, given the young players they've got at the moment who went to the backyard of the Springboks and gave it to them in such a way that the rest of the rugby world is just standing up and applauding. How many times does that happen? When does anybody in Britain get an applaud an Australian team?
Well, when does anyone get to go to South Africa and do that at Ellis Park? The All Blacks did it in 2003, I think we did, and put 50 points up on them in Pretoria. But to go to their place and embarrass them like that and humiliate them like that, and that's what it was. And Rassie Erasmus, I thought he was brilliant at the press conference. He was right to go off, because he would have been as shocked as the rest of us. No one was expecting that. And it's not just like the Aussies got away with the win, Chris, or they scored late, or they snatched a victory. They absolutely smashed them in that second half.
Any team that goes 22 points behind to the Springboks might as well just get back on the team coach and leave the stadium, because they never let the foot off the throat, do they? This team did in such a way that there's so much navel gazing going on in South Africa at the moment, they're bound to make some really stupid decisions, because that's just the way the South Africans react, don't they? They go overboard. The fact is they lost one match, and they lost a match in which they thought they could play Tony ball and just throw it around. And the Australians would just go, well, you're the world champions. You're
far
playing
too
some
good
really
for
nice
us.
rugby.
Yeah.
And sure, 22-0, they were playing some very nice rugby because they were all committed to their game plan. They then went completely off script. They stopped doing the basics. And that's what South African critics are calling for now, is get back to those basics that made us the world champions, and don't embrace Tony ball so wholly and gracefully and beautifully. This is South African rugby. You don't use those sort of words, do you? You want it right in your face and hurting. And they went away from that. And I think they have had a big shock. And in some ways, the rest of the world will be going, oh, really? They're only going to react the way that we know South Africans will react. And that's, they're really going to come hard at you. So, thanks, Australia. You are, obviously in great form, because the Lions played you into great form.
True.
When you've played the number one team in the world in a 3-match series, you're going to be better. And I think that's exactly what we've seen, Martin.
World rankings are now with the All Blacks at number one, and I think that we held that ranking for over 2,000 days or something insane, back in the from World Cup to World Cup and through that whole period. In South Africa, there's a couple of guys who tweet every day, another day's added on, another day's added on, and it goes over 1,000 days or something. We'll start again, because first you've got to wrest the number one spot back. Look, so many things to talk about in terms of that game. At 22-0 after 17 minutes, it looked as though they were going to put 50 points on. So a lot has been made of the breakdown since then. What were your thoughts on that? What did Australia do right at that part of the game for a start?
they competed so hard at the breakdown, didn't they? They were just magnificent. They stole ball at times where you thought they're just going to give up. They didn't. They were great. It was fantastic. He got stuck in there and he gave them little things to hold on to. And those little things got more and more important. And they started to actually use the ball better. And they started getting their centres running at the midfield of the South Africans and finding space on the wings. And they've got two wings who Jorgensen's been an absolute revelation. He's a fantastic finisher. And a fullback, they've got a guy who could even possibly match your fullback, because they both are unbelievable broken field runners. And the try he scored was absolutely magnificent. To do that, you have to have some kind of platform to work off. And the commentators were rightly saying, where's Will Skelton? The first 15, 20 minutes, he wasn't around. Suddenly, he started coming into the game. He started hitting people. He started carrying the ball, and people funneled in behind him. And he is massively important to the way they play. So is the skipper. The skipper was fantastic. Unfortunately, he's now injured. Those guys give you the opportunity to actually have a focal point. And it's like Arnie Surveyor with the All Blacks. You're going to get go forward ball. You file in behind it. The All Blacks do that religiously. South Africa used to do it. In this game, they didn't have anybody doing that in that final 60 minutes. They were just throwing the ball around, and it just looked so un-South African. And good on the Australians, because they then started to play the way they like to play, which is you make a mistake and we're going to hurt you.
Punish you, yeah.
And they've got some fantastic runners, really great runners. It's lovely to see. The Australia and New Zealand matches in this championship are going to be fantastic.
Yeah, 2 Bledisloe Cup matches, and they'll be feeling cock-a-hoop and confident. Maybe they can take it for the first time in 20 years. How good a result for the whole of international rugby in that, when an aura of invincibility is pricked, the importance of that whole mindset change. We're sitting here thinking South Africa are going to come to Eden Park. Are they going to take this record off us? Good Lord, if they beat us again in Wellington, that's 6 losses in a row to them. What hope do we have of climbing that mountain again? We've got a World Cup now in 2 years' time. Does this bring everyone into play? Does this say that every single team now has a possibility on a one-off basis of actually winning games like this? That's what it says to me.
Yeah, because we're grabbing hold of that video now of the Australian win over South Africa and going into it minutely, because you want to see the way that they manipulated the game after South Africa had taken that lead, how they got back into it, how they exposed limitations, certainly in certain positions, that the South Africans do have. I mean, everybody's got fed up with them saying we've got 50 players. Yeah. We could pick 3 or 4 different teams. We'll do just as good if we pick our 5th choice second row. Fine. You try and do that against an Australian team that won't stop coming at you. You need your best people out there. And it has been a shock to the system for Rassie and his coaches. And everybody's been lauding them for the amazing things of having lineouts in the middle of the pitch and all these sort of funny
they look good now, don't they?
Yeah. It's great to watch. But is that international rugby when it gets really at the coal face? No, it's not. And they've been playing around with this aura that they can do anything and it won't come back and bite them. And the Wallabies have just taken a massive chunk out of Springbok's backside.
I want to talk about, and your thoughts on the All Blacks versus Argentina as well, because obviously, but I mean, it's not very often that we get, the start of the Rugby Championship and the All Blacks story is relegated to the second in terms of the news bulletin, because this is just such a monumental surprise. I think it's probably the most significant result in Australian rugby for a couple of decades. I think it's probably the most significant result in world rugby since Japan beat the Springboks. Would you label it like that? Just at this particular point in time, just where the Springboks were, the attitude that they carried with world rugby. And you can't, as I said, if you lose and they lost 2018 or something like that, hey, they just had a loss like they did to Ireland at home last year. But this wasn't a loss. This was a pantsing, and it was a pantsing at their favourite ground. And, this is a team now we have to look at and go, okay, so your build-up wasn't that good. So your strength and depth may not be that good. So all of these players that you've got that you thought might be hanging around for another 2 years at the World Cup, maybe they're all starting to get a bit long in the tooth. Maybe the idea of throwing the ball around like the All Blacks do and trying to attack space and make space and create space, maybe that's actually not the way that you guys should be playing. As you say, there's a whole lot of imponderables now, isn't there, that we didn't have before Ellis Park kicked off on Sunday morning.
Absolutely. It's seismic. it's a touch of the Brightons in terms of what it's going to do to South African rugby, and their fans are going to be absolutely livid because they've just got used to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a fantastic, win everything, turn up. The faces of the crowd were unbelievable.
Priceless.
Yes, the opposition is allowed to win, you know, against the Springboks, and it's going to happen more often now because that invincibility has been punctured. Yeah, they will come back at Cape Town, and with an Australian
I have every belief they'll actually win that game. They will retool up Australia's, as you say, the Australia down a couple of players. Australia will be more than happy getting out of there with a split 1-1. Everyone in the Rugby Championship is happy with that South African loss, knowing that, hey, okay, the thing's up for grabs now and everyone can win. So I don't expect anything other than the Springboks to rebound in Cape Town. But even if they do, and they have to, that doesn't take anything away from this, does it?
Not at all. You can't erase that from either their psyche or from the results schedule. It will just show a massive win away from home for Australia at Ellis Park, and that will forever be in the record books. And no matter what South Africa say, our coaches got it wrong, with players weren't playing the right game plan, they were done. They were turned over by a better team on their sacred pitch, and that hurts. And of course they'll bounce back. But it means when they turn up with Buck, your guys will be feeling like, we
can take it.
So what?
Yeah, we can take it. Yeah,
you want to be the world champions. You're not now because you've been shown to be limited in key areas. And I was really impressed with the way that the All Blacks basically won that game twice in Argentina. Your scrum is up there with amongst the best in the world, if not the best in the world. You embarrassed the Pumas in the scrum throughout, and even when you brought the second string on, when you call the second string front row, they were fantastic. The driving maul was a real weapon.
Yep.
So the Springboks seems to have forgotten how to do that. And so you're going to hurt a lot of teams with that driving maul. And that's just because, as always, when the All Blacks have had to, they've gone back to find their fundamentals. And I expect South Africa to go back to their fundamentals again. And they will have to say to Tony, sorry, can you just rein in some of these ideas, because we have to start playing like the Springboks again. Meanwhile, Ireland, England, France are absolutely wetting their lips just to think of, bring on the World Cup. This is excellent news.
Chris, looking at that All Blacks Argentina performance, you're right. We'd won the game in the first half, and then we kind of buttoned off, and then we came back well again. Here in New Zealand, we always look at every All Blacks performance, and you look at it from a point of view of you look at all the things we do wrong as opposed to look at anything that we might do right. It's just, I don't know, part of the way that we do it down here. And I'm just looking at that scoreboard and thinking, if you can go there and win, 41-24, whatever this final score was, that's a hell of a result to put on them in Cordoba in the first match of the Rugby Championship. We've got to be happy with that, don't we?
You have to, because there was rustiness. There were passes going behind the back when you're thinking, Christ, the running lines usually are so sharp,
accurate,
but then you've got a fullback who will give you that little sprinkle of stardust, and he'll do something, a sidestep, and to go through and think that's what we're doing. We attack. We find space, we find soft shoulders, and we really hurt the opposition. And Seve on the wing is scoring tries for fun. And he's just dotting them down, but the build-up is really impressive when you get it right. And Geordie Barrett will spend all week going, why did I miss that tackle on the 10? Quite rightly, why did he miss it? And he won't make it again. And there's lots of improvement to come in the ways you guys are playing and want to play. And that's what will be really behind the build-up that Scott will want to bring into the second test. He'll want to see those running lines much sharper. He'll want to see the support play much closer. And building on what is a great result. 40 points on the Pumas in Argentina. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a serious result. England went there with a really good team. Okay, their Lions weren't there in their squad, but they had a really strong England team. They didn't put that sort of gap between them and the Pumas. And the Pumas were made to look quite limited. The scrum half looked like he was off the pace. They didn't have that scrum dominance you expect from them. And your line out was excellent stealing ball. I mean, the replacement hooker couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo. It was just ridiculous by the end of it, because you guys were up there competing. And that's what you're doing, man. You're competing in every single area, and you're only going to get better. And while Rassie is crying about his own performance, he'll be looking ahead at what's to come in terms of playing you guys, and he'll be seriously concerned.
So let's finish with world rankings then. So they've all changed now. All Blacks at number 1, Springboks at 2, Lions tucked in at 3. I would have thought maybe battling France for 3.
Look, the Lions just whooped the Wallabies in the 3-test series. Now, come on. Number 1.
Hardly.
Yeah, I'll give you number 2. Okay, yeah. I think the Wallabies have just leapt over South Africa, but France and England and Ireland are right up there as well. It's a very, very congested top of the table there. But you've got to say, Lions just edging it.
DSPN.